if you can't advance in holiness in a certain place, well, pardon the expression, get the hell out and go to a place where you can. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Michael Voris Show. I'm your host, Michael Voris. Today I'd like to talk to you about something that a lot of Catholics are maybe a little reticent to think about, They don't know where the boundaries are exactly, and that's going up to your priest and maybe not giving him what for, but if you have a legitimate concern or question about something or something that needs to be, you think you need to approach him on, and you're a little nervous or skittish about going up to him and saying, hey, Father, what about this or what about that? Well, don't be. First of all, the priest, whether he's your pastor or associate pastor, which, by the way, there's not really a title as associate pastor. That's kind of an American thing. It's curate. You're the pastor or you're the curate. They're servants of yours. They're ministers of the sacraments. They administer the sacraments. So they bring you our Blessed Lord in Holy Communion, at the Eucharist, at Mass. They bring you the grace of absolution and confession, and that's their job. So if there's something that you are curious about, you want to know about informationally, or you think, are we allowed to say this? Are we allowed to do that? Well, look, the question is, you can go ask whatever it is you need to ask. So let's go through some of these, for example. Well, let me give you an example. This first, before I do anything. So probably about a year ago or so, I was at a parish. The usual pastor was not there, and he had somebody else filling in for him, another priest filling in for him. This priest he had filling in for him was a member of sort of an overseas mission. He was an American, but his work was this overseas mission. And so he reads the gospel. The gospel that Sunday happened to be about the Annunciation, and of course ends with, and Mary said, "Let it be done unto me according to your word," and with that the angel left her. So he built an entire homily around that, and I'm listening to him. Now, I'll tell you, I was suspect of him immediately because I know the group that he was collecting money for, and it's one of those shady social justice-y type groups he was collecting money for. So I'm like, okay, well, let's hear how he goes with this. And he started off fine. He said, we have to be just like Our Lady, and we have to be willing to accept God's will, and whatever the case is, and that's what we want to emulate. That's a good thing. And I was like, okay, well, maybe he doesn't know the group he works for is shady, or this seems to be pretty good. And then he drove off the tracks. He said, Mary, for example, would have been very disappointed when the angel said that this was going to be the case, because she was looking forward to and excited about marrying Joseph and having 10, 12, 15 children, just like everybody did back then, and having her nice family. And that was not to be for her. God had set her aside to be Jesus' mother, and all of that stuff she'd have to give up. I got so infuriated, I had to get up and walk to the back of the church and out into the vestibule, let the doors close, and just let my head blow up. I waited and was looking through the glass windows until I saw him go back to Mass from his ridiculously stupid, un-Catholic homily, and finished Mass. And then I went up to him afterwards. After Mass, he was sort of standing on the step of the first step of the sanctuary. And I said, "Excuse me, Father," I said, "did I understand you correctly that you said Mary was planning in her head to have this giant family and couldn't wait to marry Joseph so she could have all these kids and everything else? Is that what you said?" And he said, "Yeah, that's right." I said, "How do you know that? Where are you getting that from?" And he said, "Well, because that's what every woman of the day back then would have." I said, Mary had pledged her virginity to God, and that was the whole source of this problem and this consternation in her mind. It had nothing to do with, I'm sad because I can't have 25 kids. I only have to have one son, and he's the Son of God. So that's not what this was about. He's like, "Well, how do you know all that? Were you there?" Just like that is how he said it to me, this attitude of, condescension. And I said, "Well, how do you know what you know? Were you there?" And so if you're dealing with a priest who's preaching heresy or heterodoxy or something like that, you go for the jugular. Now, you got to know your faith to do it. And just to clear that issue up, how do we know that? Well, first of all, Mary was already, our Blessed Mother was already anticipating that she was never going to have children. She had taken the temple oath that's outlined in Numbers, the book of Numbers, and it says, if a virgin is with her, wants to remain virgin for the rest of her life, first she has to ask the permission of her father, as long as she's living under his roof. If the father grants it, then that's the case. Then, if she is betrothed and gets married and still wants to do that, now the obligation of approving it switches to her husband. And if he approves it, then it's okay. So the father or the husband, future husband, could end that right away. If they both agree, that's what it was. Think about the storyline here. The angel comes to her and says, "You will conceive and bear a son." If she's anticipating that she's going to get married and have 20 kids, well, why would she be all shocked at that? Why would any woman of the Old Testament days, beginning of the New Testament days, be shocked that if she's getting married, she's going to have a kid? That's kind of the point. So the fact that the angel comes to her and says this, and she's like, whoa, wait, how can this be? I do not know man. She's not thinking, this second I'm not going to become pregnant. She's thinking, I've made this temple oath. Joseph has approved it. This is another reason Joseph gets a little sideways on this issue, St. Joseph, because he had approved this. So this was all in motion. It was done. Our Lady, when she was a little girl, whenever she did it, she was already just kind of a young girl at this point anyway, 15, 16, whatever it would have been. So her father, she wants to do it. Her father approves it. Fast forward to whatever point it needs to be. Joseph approves it, and that's it. And the suggestion that she somehow, that this was some big giant disappointment to her, that this was going to be the case and she just sort of had to settle for the Son of God as opposed to 20 kids. You talk about like a ass backwards reading of Scripture. Our Lady was confused because she knew in her mind that she was never going to have any children. That's the point of consternation in her head when the angel Gabriel announces this to her, not that she's only going to have this one child. So anyway, I got into it back and forth with him. I explained all of that to him, and he said to me, the hubris of these guys is just stunning. He said, "So you, a layman, are correcting me, a priest." I said, "Well, yeah, but I'm not correcting you with my opinion. This is the teaching of the church. You said it in the creed, Father, ever virgin." Well, you said it. That's the church's teaching. And he just did the harumph and stormed off. So I give that to you as a big overview of, if you hear something heterodox or heretical, you have a duty to go defend the truth. But you better know what you're talking about. This is why I'm always saying, you got to study the faith. You got to know the faith. Inside out, you got to swim through it like a fish swims through water. It's so natural to the fish, it isn't even aware it's in water. That's how your faith has to be for you. It has to flood every pore of your being. Now, other things. So let's say you want to, let's say you want to have a place for communion on the tongue, kneeling down, and say that your parish, which most have undergone this horrific recavation, and there's no more communion rails, which, by the way, they're not really communion rails. That's what they got used for. They're a sanctuary divide, that on the inside there is the holy, and on the outside is us. That's where the sacrifice happens. That's where God comes down from heaven. That's the womb of the church, and we're on the outside out here. That's what those were. They just turned into something to kneel down and receive Holy Communion. But they're not built to receive Holy Communion. That's just a secondary purpose. Nonetheless, you still kneel at them and receive Holy Communion. So let's say your church doesn't have that. Can you go up to the priest and say, "Hi, Father, I was just wondering if we could begin, I'll pay for them, or a few of us want to pay for them. We'll get some really nice kneelers, and for people who'd like to receive Holy Communion at Mass on Sundays or during the weekdays also, could we just kneel down over here and just receive Holy Communion that way?" Are you allowed to ask that question? Of course you're allowed to ask that question. There is in the church the universal right to receive on the tongue. You do not have to receive in the hand. You do not have to receive standing. That's clear from, I think it's a 2004 or 2008 letter from the Congregation of Divine Worship in response to a private letter from somebody saying, hey, we'd like to do this. And well, it doesn't need to be some official church teaching. The Pope puts his mitre on and announces to the world. The Congregation for Divine Worship answered a private inquiry about that and said, from their official letterhead, you have a universal right to receive Holy Communion on the tongue. So, case closed. Thank you for watching The Michael Voris Show. If you'd like to watch the entire episode, please head over to churchmilitant.com and sign up as a premium member. If you need to sign up to become a premium member, go to churchmilitant.com/go premium.